I stand alone in the bridal suite of Lakeview Villa, my wedding dress a heavy reminder of promises about to be broken. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes 3 times, each toll piercing the fragile hope I've clung to all morning. Outside the carved oak door, whispers grow louder then fade, like waves of concern washing against my sanctuary. My phone grows slick in my palm as I check it for the 100th time. No calls. No texts. Just my own desperate messages to Nathan filling the screen. Where are you? Please call me. Everyone is waiting. Is everything okay? The last message sent 3 hours ago hangs unanswered, a digital testimony to my abandonment. 2 weeks ago, Nathan twirled me around our Boston apartment, his laughter bouncing off the walls as we practiced our first dance. The autumn sun streamed through our windows, casting golden light across his face as he dipped me dramatically. "You're going to make the most beautiful bride," he had whispered, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners. "2 more weeks, Dr. Brenner, and you'll be stuck with me forever." I remember the warmth that flooded my chest, the certainty that despite the chaos of my medical residency and his demanding business, we had found our center in each other. Last Tuesday, my fellow residents surprised me with cupcakes and champagne in the hospital break room. Dr. Winters, my supervisor, raised her plastic cup with uncharacteristic sentimentality. "To Callie," she toasted, "who somehow manages to be the most compassionate doctor on our floor while planning what I'm sure will be the wedding of the century." I blushed, uncomfortable with the attention but touched by their support. That night, Nathan had called while I was still at the hospital, his voice light but distracted. "Just one last business meeting tomorrow morning, then I'm all yours for the wedding weekend," he promised. "The investors are finally ready to commit. This could change everything for us, Cal." I smiled into the phone, picturing the eager way his hands always moved when he talked about his medical technology startup. "Go knock them dead. I'll see you at the lake house Thursday night." That was the last normal conversation we had. 3 days of silence followed, each hour stretching my nerves tighter until they threatened to snap. "Cold feet," my bridesmaids suggested yesterday, their voices too bright, too reassuring. Men always panic before the big day. But Nathan wasn't just any man, and this wasn't just nerves. Something had shifted. Something fundamental had broken loose and drifted away when I wasn't looking. My sister Delia's absence gnawed at me almost as much as Nathan's. Each time I called her, I reached voicemail or received hurried texts. "In a meeting. Call you right back." But she never did. This morning, the wedding planner's concerned glances spoke volumes as she helped button me into my dress. "I'm sure he's just running late," she said, checking her watch for the 4th time. Traffic from Boston can be unpredictable. But her eyes told a different story. A soft knock breaks my reverie. My father's weathered face appears in the doorway, his formal suit making him look older, more fragile. In all my years, I've never seen him look so uncertain. "Sweetheart," he says, his voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. He crosses the room and takes my trembling hands in his. The roughness of his palms grounds me, reminds me of the little girl who once believed her daddy could fix anything. His eyes meet mine, deep pools of regret and fierce protection. "I think we need to tell everyone to go home." The words hover between us, transforming what was meant to be from what is. I swallow hard, tasting the salt of tears I don't remember shedding. He's not coming. Not a question, but a statement of truth I've known for hours but refused to admit. Dad shakes his head once, his jaw tightening. "No, he's not." I close my eyes briefly, gathering what remains of my dignity. 200 guests wait below, cousins who flew in from California, college roommates who rearranged vacations, patients who switched shifts to celebrate with their favorite doctor. "I'll do it," I say, straightening my spine. "I need to face them myself." The walk down the grand staircase feels endless. Each step brings a new wave of hushed conversation that stops abruptly at my appearance. Not the entrance I had rehearsed. I stand before them, a bride without a groom, and somehow find my voice. "I want to thank you all for coming today," I begin, surprised by the steadiness in my words. "Unfortunately, the wedding will not be taking place. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience." Back in my hotel room later, I slide the diamond engagement ring from my finger-me grandmother's ring, reset with modern brilliance. It catches the late afternoon light, throwing prisms across the wall. For one terrible moment, I consider throwing it across the room, watching it disappear under the antique armoire. Instead, I place it carefully in its velvet box and snap it shut, locking away more than just platinum and diamonds. A week later, I paused beneath a towering oak in Boston Common, my fingers wrapped around a paper cup of coffee gone cold. 1 week has passed since I stood alone in a wedding dress, trying to explain the unexplainable to 200 guests. The October breeze catches my hair, and I tuck an errant strand behind my ear, watching children chase pigeons across the path. The hospital granted me 2 weeks leave pity time. I call it privately, though I'd argued to return immediately. Work feels like the only solid ground left. A familiar laugh cuts through the park sounds. My body recognizes it before my mind can process. That distinctive 3-note cascade, starting high and tumbling down Nathan's laugh. I freeze, coffee sloshing over my knuckles. The burn barely registers as I turn toward the sound, slow and mechanical, like a music box ballerina. There, by the water, Nathan walks with his arm looped through my sister's, his head bent toward hers, intimate and familiar. Delia tosses her hair, the same gesture from childhood when she got what she wanted. They haven't noticed me yet, wrapped in their private bubble of conspiracy. Sunlight glints off something on Delia's left hand as she reaches up to touch Nathan's face. My grandmother's ring reset with modern brilliance now circles my sister's finger. The coffee cup slips from my grasp. Dark liquid spreads across the path like spilled secrets. The sound must catch their attention. Delia's head turns, her gaze sweeping the park until it locks with mine across 50 feet of autumn grass. I wait for shame to cross her face, for guilt to shatter her composure, for some sign that betraying her only sister cost her something. Instead, she straightens her spine and lifts her chin. The look in her eyes isn't apologetic, it's defiant, almost triumphant, as if she's finally claimed something she always deserved. Nathan notices her stillness and follows her gaze. When he sees me, the blood drains from his face, leaving him pale beneath his weekend stubble. He takes half a step forward, mouth opening, then closing. 3 years of loving him, of planning a future, of sharing dreams and fears and silent midnight conversations, distilled into this single tableau of betrayal. I could storm across the grass, demand explanations, create the scene they clearly expect, the wronged woman, wild with grief and rage. Instead, I turn and walk away, my steps measured and calm. Their eyes burn into my back, but I don't give them the satisfaction of looking back. The next morning, I sit in my parents' kitchen, the morning light painting everything in cruel clarity. My mother's teacup rattles against its saucer as I finish telling them. Nathan and Delia. My father's voice emerges like granite cracking. His weathered hands, the same hands that had held mine at the wedding venue, now clench into fists on the oak table. Together. I nod once, the movement sharp. She is no daughter of mine, he declares, rising from his chair with such force it scrapes against the floor. The sound makes my teeth ache. My mother's tears fall silently, tracking down her lined face. How could she do this to her own sister? She reaches for my hand across the table. Her own blood. This betrayal, my father begins, his voice thunderous with righteous anger. Dad, I interrupt him quietly. Don't cut her off completely, this is between us. They both stare at me, confusion mingling with their anger. Not that I'm defending her, I clarify. But dividing this family further won't fix anything. Later, I stand in what was once our apartment, mine and Nathan's, half the closet empty. His books gone from the shelves. The silence holds a different quality now, hollow rather than peaceful. On the kitchen counter, weighted down by his spare key, I find a note. His handwriting, once so familiar, now looks like a stranger's scrawl. I'm sorry, it just happened. 5 words to explain the demolition of 3 years. As if betrayal were a weather event, unexpected and beyond control. As if falling in love with my sister were a random accident, like slipping on ice. I crumple the note, then smooth it flat again, folding it precisely into quarters before tucking it into my pocket. Evidence, though I'm not sure of what. In the spare bedroom that served as our shared office, I find a small leather-bound planner wedged behind the desk. Delia's handwriting fills the margins. Coffee with N, lunch with N, museum with N. Dates stretching back 4 months, carefully coded but unmistakable once you know the truth. The hospital badge on my kitchen counter catches the afternoon light. Massachusetts General Hospital. Dr. Callie Brenner, internal medicine. My career, my calling, now tied to a city suddenly filled with landmines of memory, every street corner potentially hiding my sister and my former fiancé. I trace the embossed letters of my name, feeling the weight of decisions yet unmade pressing against my chest. Boston has always been home, but home requires safety, and safety requires trust. Neither exists for me here anymore. A month later, I slide the last cardboard box into my Honda's back seat, the springs groaning in protest. 3 years of medical residency and years with Nathan all packed into a vehicle that's seen better days. My fingers linger on the worn upholstery, finding comfort in its familiar texture. That's the last one, I tell myself, my voice sounding foreign in the empty Boston apartment. The morning sunlight catches dust motes swirling through the room that once held our future. 2 weeks ago, I sat across from Dr. Winters in her office, watching concern crease her forehead as I explained my request for transfer. Trinity Care in Oregon? She removed her reading glasses, rubbing the indentation on her nose. Callie, you're on track for chief resident next year. This is unexpected. I straightened my spine, the way I did when delivering difficult news to patients. It's a rural healthcare position. They need someone with my training. She studied me, seeing past my practiced composure. The hospital grapevine had spread news of my wedding disaster with ruthless efficiency. Sometimes starting over is the bravest choice we make, she said finally, her pen hovering over my transfer request. But are you certain? Boston Memorial has invested in you. We see your potential. My fingers twisted the bare spot where my engagement ring once sat. I'm certain. The scratch of her signature across the paper sounded like freedom. Now, standing in the doorway of what was once our home, I allow myself one last sweeping glance. The walls are bare except for the nail holes marking where our photos once hung. I don't need physical reminders of the life I'm leaving behind. Those images are burned into my memory with painful clarity. My phone buzzes with a text from my mother. Are you sure about this, sweetheart? Your father and I worry. I type back, I'll call from the road. Love you. What I don't say, I can't breathe in this city anymore. Every street corner holds a memory of Nathan. Every hospital corridor carries whispers about the doctor whose fiancé ran off with her sister. The highway stretches before me like a promise as I leave Massachusetts behind. Each mile marker puts distance between me and the shattered pieces of my former life. I roll down the windows, letting the wind whip through my hair, carrying away the scent of antiseptic and betrayal. By Nebraska, I find myself singing along to the radio for the first time in months. In Wyoming, I pull over to watch a sunset that paints the sky in colors I'd forgotten existed. Montana brings a thunderstorm that matches the turbulence inside, mevolent cleansing necessary. When I finally cross into Oregon 7 days later, exhaustion and anticipation war within me. The landscape transforms from flat expanses to rolling hills dotted with pines. Wren Hill appears around a bend in the road, small, unassuming, perfect. My cabin sits at the edge of town, partially hidden by towering evergreens. The real estate agent called it rustic charm. Translation: weathered wooden siding that needs fresh paint and a porch that tilts slightly to the left. But when I turn the key in the lock, something settles in my chest. The rooms are small but filled with late afternoon light. The kitchen cabinets hang crooked, but the pine floors feel solid beneath my feet. No ghosts here, no memories, just possibility. Dr. Brenner! A voice calls from the gravel driveway the next morning as I unload boxes from my car. Dr. Patricia Morgan stands with her hands on her hips, her silver hair cut in a practical bob. As Trinity Care's director, she'd interviewed me via video call, her no-nonsense questions paired with unexpected kindness. I thought you might need this. She holds up a basket covered with a checkered cloth. Welcome breakfast. Nobody should face unpacking on an empty stomach. She doesn't ask about Boston or Nathan or why a promising doctor would choose tiny Wren Hill over a prestigious residency. Instead, she helps me carry in boxes, commenting on the cabin's good bones and pointing out which floorboards creak. Over coffee and still warm muffins, she outlines my first week. We're short-staffed, so you'll hit the ground running. Hope that's okay. It's exactly what I need, I say and mean it. Later, I walk Wren Hill's main street, all 4 blocks of it. No one turns to stare. No one whispers behind their hands. The anonymity wraps around me like a blanket. I pass a hardware store, a diner, a small library, a bookshop with a local history display in the window. A coffee shop where the barista calls everyone hone, regardless of age. At Trinity Care, my office is small but bright. The desk faces a window overlooking pine trees rather than city buildings. I unpack my stethoscope, medical reference books, laptop. Last, I place a single framed photo on the desk, my medical school graduation. Just me in my cap and gown before Nathan, before the broken engagement, a reminder of why I'm here. Dr. Brenner? Patricia appears in my doorway. Sorry to interrupt your settling in, but Mrs. Gardner needs a house call. Her arthritis is acting up and she can't make it to the clinic. I grab my medical bag without hesitation. Give me the address. You sure? You've barely unpacked. I'm sure. The faster I plunge into this new life, the less time I'll have to remember the old one. 15 minutes later, I am in front of the house. Mrs. Gardner lives in a small blue house with wind chimes hanging from every available hook on her porch. When I knock, a voice calls, "It's open, doctor." She sits in a worn armchair, her hands twisted with arthritis, her eyes sharp with intelligence. "You're the new one," she says, assessing me. "From the big city." "Boston," I confirm, kneeling beside her to take her blood pressure. "Running from something or towards something?" she asks, wincing as I gently examine her swollen joints. The question catches me off guard. "Both, I suppose." She nods, satisfied. "Good answer. Single direction never gets you anywhere worth going." She fixes me with a penetrating stare. "My Albert passed 3 years ago. Married 57 years. Some folks around here still treat me like I might shatter." I adjust her medication, explaining the changes as I write them down in large, clear letters. "You don't strike me as the shattering type, Mrs. Gardner." Her laugh fills the small living room. "Call me Edith. And you're right. Bent maybe, like these fingers, but not broken." Something passes between us, understanding, recognition, two women reshaping their lives around absence. "You come for Sunday dinner this weekend," she says as I pack up my bag. No arguments. Doctors need feeding too. Driving back to the clinic, I roll down my window. The Oregon air smells of pine and possibility. For the first time since watching Nathan walk away with my sister, I feel the tight band around my chest loosen. Not healing, not yet, but the first hint that healing might be possible. That night, in my cabin, I sit on the tilted porch with a cup of tea, watching stars appear in a sky unmarred by city lights. Tomorrow, I'll organize the town's first mobile health screening. Next week, I'll learn the names of my regular patients. This month, I'll paint the cabin's weathered siding. Small steps. New routes. One day at a time. 3 years later, I stand at the podium, bathed in the cool blue lights of the Seattle Convention Center, my notes perfectly aligned before me. The microphone picks up my steady voice as I gesture toward the projection screen behind me. Rural communities deserve more than weekend clinics and volunteer medical students, I say, clicking to the next slide. Simple graph showing Trinity Care's 3-year improvement in chronic disease management. They deserve continuity. They deserve doctors who know their names, their families, their stories. The audience of healthcare executives and physicians nods in collective agreement. 3 years ago, I would have gripped the podium with white knuckles, afraid my voice might crack, terrified someone would stand up and call me a fraud. Today, my hands move with purpose, emphasizing points I've lived and breathed since arriving in Wren Hill. When Mrs. Gardner came to Trinity Care, she'd seen 14 different providers in 2 years. I pause, letting that number sink in. 14 different people asking the same questions, ordering the same tests, never connecting her irregular heartbeat to her insomnia, to her anxiety. From the third row, Warren catches my eye. His subtle nod fuels my confidence. 3 years of mentorship turned friendship turned into something neither of us has named yet. Today, Mrs. Gardner manages her conditions with one primary physician, quarterly check-ins, and a community health worker who stops by for tea every Thursday. Her ER visits? 0 in the past 18 months. A murmur of approval ripples through the ballroom. This is my moment. The validation of everything I've built from the ashes of my former life. Then I see her. 5th row aisle seat. Delia, my sister, my betrayer. The sight of her hits me like a physical blow. She sits with perfect posture in a crisp coral blazer, her dark hair cut in a sleek bob that frames her face. A small silver name badge glints on her lapel. Even from 30 feet away, I can read the company name, Metasphere Consulting. Our eyes lock. Her lips curve into a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. I force myself to continue, my mouth suddenly dry. The cost savings from preventive care. My voice falters for a fraction of a second, but I recover. The cost savings from preventative care versus emergency intervention pays for our program 3 times over. Warren shifts in his seat, his attention now divided between me and the unwelcome visitor he's spotted. His shoulders tense as he makes the connection. I click through the remaining slides, highlighting Trinity Care's community partnerships, our telehealth integration, our medication adherence rates. The data speaks for itself, a testament to work that saved me when I most needed saving. Thank you for your attention, I conclude. I welcome your questions. Hands rise throughout the audience. The moderator calls on a hospital administrator from Minnesota, then a physician researcher from Johns Hopkins. Their questions are thoughtful, their interest genuine. Then the moderator points to the 5th row. Yes, the woman in coral. Delia stands, smoothing her skirt. Delia Sutton, healthcare media consultant with Metasphere. She omits our shared maiden name, but several heads turn between us, the resemblance unmistakable. Whispers flutter through the crowd. Dr. Brenner, your results are impressive, she begins, her voice carrying the practiced warmth she uses to disarm. I'm curious, given your background and personal journey, how do you address emotional resilience with your staff? After all, healthcare providers often face personal setbacks that could impact patient care. The question hangs in the air. Every ear strains for my response, though few understand the knife edge hidden in her words. Warren stiffens, half rising before catching himself. The room holds its breath. I look directly at Delia, refusing to shrink. Character is built in moments of challenge. I say, my voice clear and unhurried. Every provider at Trinity Care understands that our patients bring their whole stories to us, not just their symptoms. We can hardly expect to treat them with compassion if we haven't done the work of understanding our own narratives. I allow myself the smallest of smiles. Sometimes the greatest innovations come from rebuilding after loss. It forces us to question assumptions about what's necessary and what's merely comfortable. Delia's expression falters. This isn't the reaction she expected. The moderator clears her throat. Next question, please. After the session, attendees cluster around me, business cards extended, invitations to collaborate offered. Through the crowd, I glimpse Warren intercepting Delia in the hallway. Though I can't hear their exchange, his stance protective, resolute, speaks volumes. Delia's face tightens before she turns and walks briskly toward the exit. Later that evening, Warren and I sit across from each other at a small waterfront restaurant. The Seattle skyline glitters across the harbor, lights dancing on the dark water. Conference director pulled me aside, Warren says, breaking a piece of sourdough. Said they've never seen such a graceful handling of an obvious ambush. I take a sip of wine. I almost froze when I saw her. No one would have known. His eyes, warm and certain, meet mine. Marianne Hammond from the Westridge Foundation mentioned she canceled her meeting with Metasphere tomorrow. That wasn't my intention. I know. Warren reaches across the table, his fingers stopping just short of mine. That's why it happened. Your work speaks for itself, Callie. I place my hand over his, the contact sending warmth up my arm. So does yours. Around us, the restaurant hums with conversation and clinking glasses. Tomorrow we'll return to Wren Hill, to our patients, to the life I've carefully constructed. Delia will return to Boston, to whatever she's made of the pieces she took from me. For the first time, I realize I don't need those pieces back. 3 years later, I stand at the window of my childhood bedroom, watching early morning light filter through maple branches. The bedroom remains frozen in time debate trophies, medical school acceptance letter framed on the wall, and a photo of Dad teaching me to fish at Lake Winnipesaukee when I was 12. Every surface holds memories that now ache with his absence. Downstairs, the grandfather clock, the one Dad restored the summer before I left for Yale, chimes 7 times. Its familiar tone only emphasizes what's missing. His humming in the kitchen, the rustle of his newspaper, the soft padding of his slippers across hardwood floors. Warren appears in the doorway, already dressed in his dark suit, his presence a steady anchor in this house of ghosts. Your mom made coffee, he says quietly. I nod, smoothing invisible wrinkles from my black dress. I keep looking at his chair in the living room, expecting him to be there. Warren crosses the room and stands beside me, his shoulder touching mine. We've been married 2 years, but in moments like this, I still marvel at how he knows exactly when to speak and when to simply exist alongside my grief. Downstairs, Mom wraps her arms around me, her embrace fierce despite her diminished frame. She smells of the lavender soap Dad always bought her for Christmas. "He was so proud of you, Callie," she whispers against my hair. "Every time your name appeared in a medical journal, he made copies for everyone at his bridge club." I swallow hard against the knot in my throat. I should have visited more. Nonsense. Mom pulls back, her eyes red, rimmed but clear. "You built a life worth living. That's what he wanted most." Warren touches the small of my back as we gather our things. His wedding band catches the light simple platinum, no diamonds, no betrayals. The funeral home sits on Beacon Street, its brick facades somber against a cloudless October sky. We arrive early, greeting the director and reviewing arrangements one final time. The chapel fills gradually with Dad's colleagues, neighbors, and friends from the university, where he taught economics for 30 years. At precisely 11:07 after the service was scheduled to begin, the rear doors swing open. The low murmur of respectful conversation falters. Delia strides in, Nathan one step behind her. My sister wears a designer black dress with an elaborate jeweled collar that catches the light from stained glass windows. Nathan's watch platinum and ostentatious flashes as he helps her remove a fur-trimmed coat. "Subtle as a hurricane," Warren murmurs, his hand finding mine. Delia makes her way through the gathering, stopping to accept condolences with practiced grace. Her performance is flawless, the bereaved daughter returning home, chin tilted at the perfect angle of dignified grief. Nathan hovers awkwardly beside her, clearly uncomfortable as several of Dad's oldest friends stare with undisguised judgment. I focus on greeting Professor Williams, Dad's department chair, when a cloud of expensive perfume announces my sister's approach. "Callie." Delia air kisses near my cheek. Her eyes, so similar to mine in color but nothing else, scan me quickly. "Still on your own, little sister? I worried you might be alone today." Warren steps forward before I can respond, his hand extended. "Dr. Warren Cole, Callie's husband." The ripple of recognition moves through nearby mourners. Dad's closest friends smile knowingly. Delia recovers quickly, but not before I catch the flicker of surprise. 2 years now, isn't it? I'm sorry we couldn't attend the wedding." "No invitation was sent," I say simply. From the corner of my eye, I see Nathan freeze mid-conversation. The color drains from his face as he recognizes Warren, the respected medical researcher who, 4 years ago, rejected Nathan's rushed proposal for investment in his medical technology startup. Warren had seen through the sketchy business model within minutes. "If you'll excuse us," I say, "they're ready to begin." The service unfolds with dignified simplicity. When it's time for the eulogy, I approach the podium, feeling the weight of 200 eyes upon me. The paper in my hands remains unread. I know these words by heart. "My father believed that life reveals character through our choices." I begin. Not the easy ones made in daylight with everyone watching, but the hard decisions made in darkness when no one would know the difference. As I speak about Dad's integrity, his dedication to students, his love of classical music, I watch faces in the congregation. Mom nods gently in the front row. Warren's eyes never leave mine, and somewhere in the middle, Delia shifts uncomfortably as several heads turn subtly toward her. "Dad taught me to choose the right people to trust." I continue. "He showed me that true success isn't measured by appearances or possessions, but by the lives you touch and the good you leave behind." After the service, people gather around Mom and me, sharing stories and offering support. I notice how Delia stands increasingly alone, Nathan absorbed in his phone across the room. The power has shifted, not through confrontation but through the quiet testimony of choices made and lives built. At the cemetery, autumn leaves carpet the ground in gold and crimson. I place a single white rose on Dad's casket, his favorite flower from the garden he tended for 40 years. Delia stands awkwardly at the edge of the gathering, her stiletto heels sinking into soft earth, her expensive dress fluttering in the October wind. As we turn to leave, Warren whispers, "Your father would be proud of how you handled today." I look back once. Delia remains by the grave, finally alone with the father whose approval she never stopped seeking but never learned how to earn. In that moment, revenge seems a hollow concept compared to the simple peace of knowing who you are and being exactly where you belong. The mountains of western Oregon rise around us like guardians as Warren's truck winds along the familiar curves toward home. After 2 weeks away, the Douglas firs stand taller in my memory, their evergreen scent filtering through the partially opened window. Warren's hand finds mine across the console, his thumb tracing small circles against my skin. "You okay?" he asks, eyes flicking between me and the road ahead. I turn from the window, studying the lines of his face, the silver threading through his temples that wasn't there when we first met. "Better now," I say, meaning it. Boston feels like another lifetime. The tension that had coiled in my shoulders since my father's funeral begins to unravel with each mile marker we pass. Warren doesn't press for conversation, understanding the quiet space I need to transition between worlds. The radio plays softly Fleetwood Mac, my father's favorite, and I let myself remember him without the overlay of Delia's performance at the funeral, without Nathan's uncomfortable hovering near the back of the church. When we crest the final hill overlooking Wren Hill, the late afternoon sun catches on the river that cuts through the valley. The scattered buildings of our town nestle against the landscape rather than imposing upon it. Our cabin sits on the eastern ridge, its cedar siding weathered to a soft gray. "Look," Warren says softly, nodding toward the driveway. 3 cars are parked beside our porch. Through the kitchen window, I can see movement: Patricia's silver bob, the broad shoulders of Sam from the pharmacy, Eliza's bright scarf as she arranges something on our table. "They didn't have to do that," I whisper, unexpected tears pricking my eyes. Warren squeezes my hand. "That's Wren Hill for you. We take care of our own." Inside, the scent of rosemary chicken and fresh bread wraps around us. Patricia hurries forward, enveloping me in a hug that smells of her lavender perfume. "We figured you wouldn't want to cook tonight," she says, pulling back to examine my face. "You look tired, sweetheart." Sam passes me a glass of wine. "To your dad," he says simply. "Patricia told us he was a good man." I nod, unable to speak for a moment. These people never met my father, yet they honor him because he was mine. The contrast between this sincere kindness and the strained formality of Boston crashes over me. "It feels good to be home," I manage finally, looking at the faces around me, no colleagues, but friends who became family when my own fractured. Later, after everyone leaves, Warren brings in the mail that was collected during our absence. Among the bills and medical journals sits a cream envelope with my mother's handwriting. "She already wrote?" Warren asks, settling beside me on the sofa. The letter is brief. "Nathan's medical technology company has failed investors pulled out after a product safety scandal. Delia has filed for divorce, moved back to their childhood home in Vermont." Warren watches my face as I fold the letter. "Feel vindicated?" he asks carefully. I consider the question, searching for the satisfaction I might have once expected to feel. "No," I answer, surprising myself with the truth of it. "No one wins when a family breaks." Warren nods, drawing me against his chest. "That's why I married you," he murmurs into my hair. "Your heart makes room for understanding without requiring you to make room for toxicity." Outside our window, the Oregon sunset paints the sky in shades of amber and lavender. Birds call to one another as they settle for the night. This place, this life we've built holds nothing of what I once thought I wanted, yet contains everything I never knew I needed. Trinity Care's rural healthcare model is being adopted in 3 more states. I tell Warren, thinking of the award letter that arrived before we left for the funeral. They want me to head up the regional implementation team. His eyes crinkle at the corners. "Dr. Brenner changing American healthcare from a cabin in Wren Hill. Your father would have loved that story." I rest my head against his shoulder, watching the last light fade beyond our porch. The swing sways gently beneath us, its familiar creak a counterpoint to the evening chorus of crickets and distant owls. "Some people steal what you thought you needed, so you're forced to find what you actually deserve,"